So I've heard this a lot, which is people are like, oh, well, I don't really follow the Old Testament. I'm a New Testament. I'm a Christian, because Christ came after the Old Testament. And I just kind of wonder, it's like, doesn't it not matter what part of the Bible it comes from? It just, as long as it's in there somewhere, you should be following it anyways. Because, in the New Testament, apparently they don't care as much about meat eating.
It depends on who's talking and who's being written to. Okay, but first off, by saying you're a New Testament Christian disregarding the Old, Jesus didn't do that. Jesus was a Jew. He was a practicing Jew. He kept all those Old Testament laws, or else he couldn't have been a perfect sacrifice. All right, so Jesus was a practicing Jew. Everything applies. However, they really don't understand what that means, because a testament, think of it like a will. It doesn't kick in until somebody dies. So the New Testament doesn't kick in, the new law, until after Jesus dies. So those four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, that talk about Jesus' life, all that should really be Old Testament theology. All right? That really doesn't apply until, Jesus doesn't die until, later on. Mm-hmm. So all those laws, everything in the Old Testament applies. So they can't just disregard it. If they do, it just shows their Bible ignorance.
Yeah, and that's interesting because I think they want to disregard it because it makes them feel better about the actions that they're doing by eating meat and dairy and other animal products. But it also makes me think, like, when somebody says, oh, I use the Bible to defend my meat eating, and it's like, well, 2,000 years ago, we didn't have factory farms. We didn't have, like, the gigantic amount of animal slaughter that we do to this day. I'm trying to think, maybe, once a month, if that, they would kill an animal and eat it? For the most part, they were probably vegetarian and vegans back then.
Yeah, very much so. They were, consider only the wealthy could afford meat. Okay, the poor people, if they were eating meat, it was usually fish. You'll hear that a lot, because if you're poor, you didn't own land. So where would you get food? The only place you could get food if you couldn't grow your own, the ocean. The lake, the Sea of Galilee, that's where we can at least get food. So that was their only way of sustaining themselves. And also, you brought up the point of they weren't doing the mass murder, I don't want to say murder because Christians won't accept that word, but the mass killings. You think when Moses was on, when Moses was raising the sheep, you think when King David was a shepherd, you think these animals were living what would be considered by us free range? You can't get any more free range than that. They actually did live on the mountainsides. They got to have sex the way God wanted the animals to have sex. They got to eat the natural foods God wanted them to eat. They got to sleep and run and interact and build community the way God wanted them to, until that one bad day they got killed for whatever sacrifice, which is bad, but we're not going to go, that's not the question you brought up. But that's what the animals went through. We're not doing that today. This mass confinement, the factory farms, what you brought up, that's, no way did God ever have that, no way did Jesus ever approve any of that stuff no way did the apostles ever approve any of that kind of activities going on with animals. They would have looked at that and said, no, that's sinful. Don't do that.
Yeah, because I've seen slaughterhouse videos. I've never actually been in one, but I've seen enough to know that, if you are defending that using the Bible as the reason, then I don't think you know what the Bible is, because it's like you're trying to use an excuse for something that's absolutely terrible behavior. Like, I can't even describe how terrible the conditions are for these animals. Definitely not free range at all. No. Even if it was free range, what they have to go through in a line, I'm pretty sure they know what's going to happen to them as they see their friends in front of them being killed right in front of them. Animals aren't that stupid like we think they are. Just because we have higher intelligence doesn't mean we're the basic intelligence of knowing you're in danger. I'm pretty sure they know that. Cows, pigs, chickens. Yeah. Maybe not as much chickens, but I feel like even they probably still know, because the pigs are extremely smart and they really know. So for them, I'm sure this is absolutely torturous. Using the Bible as a defense is one of those things where it's hard for me to justify anything, and it almost makes me think okay, if the Bible is okay with this, then maybe the Bible's wrong. And I don't want to say that because I know you love it, and you're actually, you do defend the Bible. And I know that like you, have shown that like, no, the Bible actually doesn't even say that. So you can't use it as an excuse for this kind of behavior.
It can't. Actually, God is dealing with a bunch of spoiled brats who say in the book of Numbers, who say in the book of Deuteronomy, who say, we will have meat. And God's like, He gave us the earth we have dominion over the earth. We can do what we want. He's not going to force us to do anything. He's going to try and nudge us in the right direction. And I think when they see these laws that allow for meat eating or that kind of thing, they're thinking that's God saying, yeah, go for it. No, God's like saying, I'm going to try and regulate it to get you off this. I'm going to try and stop you by love, not by force.
Mm-hmm.